hi everyone, morning. Thanks for coming. Early Tuesday morning, but I'm sure you're all very excited to be here. And Michael, thanks for coming again. Twice in a year, we're very spoilt.
Thanks,
thanks for coming again. And we're just going to do a little bit of a question and answer. So John's busily prepared all his hard-hitting questions that he's going to ask Michael. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. So you might need to help him out a bit, okay? So enjoy, and thanks for coming.
Thank you. Keep it rolling. Hello. I'm on. We were going to sing a song first up, but they got kiboshed, so I'll just go straight into some questions. And again, thanks for coming down, mate. I know your time's very, very valuable, and we appreciate you coming down. Probably the last time we get a chance to talk to Michael, so hopefully I'll do a good job and we get some interesting info out of you.
Thanks for having me.
I know you've been asked this a lot before, but the question that's come up a lot in the last probably 2-3 weeks is around Ricky Ponting's departure. I'm just interested to know what that means to you, to the team and the team dynamic, particularly from a leadership perspective.
Yeah, it's no doubt it's been a tough couple of weeks, I guess. When I spoke to Ricky after the Adelaide Test match, he came and see me when we were at the airport, and pretty much, long story short, said he was thinking about announcing his retirement before the Perth Test. That information for me to, I guess, to hear and try and work out, you know, the great Ricky Ponting, someone that I've played every Test match with, over 201 days with, and you know, I still and will always see him as my captain. He's the only captain I ever played under for Australia. It was quite difficult to handle, and I guess we spoke for, you know, not only the whole flight, but then probably the first 2 days we got to Perth. I was talking to him and trying to change his mind or just put things in his head to make sure, you know, he was 100% certain that I was making the right decision. And at the end of the day, you know, my job as his teammate, nothing to do with being his captain, his teammate, is to, you know, whatever decision Ricky was going to make, I was going to support 100%, that's for sure. But it does change a lot for the team. You know, it means we lose a lot of leadership, a lot of experience. We lose our number 4 batter, we lose our second slip fielder, and we lose a mentor, most important to a lot of the young guys in the team. So, you know, what the public sees in regards to Ricky's statistics on paper as a batsman was only a tiny piece of what he brought to the team. And I think that's probably going to be the hardest thing for us to not replace. We'll never be able to replace him because he's a legend of the game. But try and fill those boots as much as we can. I think it's going to take a lot of work from different players around the group to try and do that.
So that probably leads into the Ashes. It doesn't really, but a question leads into the Ashes as Warnie's thrown himself out there as a potential. What are your thoughts on that? I know he's only said that he thinks he can still play Test cricket, and if he was asked by you, he'd consider it. He'd make the call yet?
I've spoken to Warnie a few times, and I guess since he's been retired, I've said to him on a number of occasions, you should still be playing, because he's still got the love and desire to play the game of cricket, whether it be IPL, Big Bash, or for Australia. He's certainly fit enough and strong enough. He's looking as fit as I've ever seen him. He's training fitness-wise harder than he ever did throughout his career. But as I've said in the media before, there's a lot that comes with playing cricket for Australia. Time away from family and friends. It's a full-time commitment. You know, there's a lot of things that Warnie would have to think about before he came out of retirement. So if it was just about turning up and bowling for Australia, I've no doubt he could do that. It's just a matter if he's willing to give up all the other things to, I guess, come back and be a full-time cricketer, which, in my opinion, I don't think Warnie will do that. I think he knows he's a legend of the game and has achieved so much. What else can he achieve? But if I can convince him in any way, I'll be doing everything in my power to try and get him to come back. And again, it's not so much because for his bowling. I think he's no doubt he's a great bowler, but I think Nathan Lyon's a really good kid and has improved out of side as well and has a bright future. But the opportunity for those two to work together, and also the opportunity to have Warnie around our group as a leader, would be, you know, fantastic. But I think it's very unlikely that he'll come out of retirement. But you never know.
And what do you think some of those things, Warner, you'd have to give up would be?
Living in London is probably one of them. That's probably the hardest thing. He's got three kids of his own. His fiance's got a little boy as well, so he comes, back and forth Melbourne to London regularly. There's a lot of travel there. There's a lot of commitment to make, for their relationship. So, yeah, it would be another commitment to commit to the Australian Test team full time as well, which is much easier said than done. That's for sure. It would be nicer.
We agree, I think. Just as a leader, probably throughout your whole life, what do you think's the biggest challenge that you've faced in that leadership space? And not particularly, it doesn't have to be cricket, probably is, but it doesn't have to be.
Well, I probably have two sides to my life. I have my cricket life, which to the world seems like 99%, but to me it's probably 51%, and then I have my life, which is the other 49%. The hardest challenge in my life has been, I guess, the acceptance that my dad got diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease about 2007, and then the family to go through that experience. And then my dad, 12 months ago, to get diagnosed with prostate cancer, for us to still be going through that, that's been the hardest part of my life, no doubt. And then on the cricket side of things, I guess, in regards to captaincy and leadership, it's probably the stuff off the field more than on the field. I actually feel when I'm playing cricket, it's like a day off. That's your time where you have no mobile phone. Not that there's anything wrong with mobile phones. But you're away from the world. It's nobody can get you. This is what I thought. I think I was born to play this great game of cricket. I feel comfortable playing cricket. There's some challenges, and it's certainly, there's some good times and bad times, but out in the cricket field is where I feel I belong, and I don't have to deal with the other stuff off the field. So, it's more the responsibility that comes with being the Australian cricket captain is there's so much stuff off the field that you never know until you get in that role. The phone doesn't stop. You have a lot of different commitments, whether it be for sponsors for Cricket Australia, your own personal sponsors, the consistent communication with players, whether they're, whether you're playing for Australia or, we go to India after the Australian summer, but I'll be communicating with players that aren't on that tour back in Australia. It's a full-time job, that's for sure. And I love every minute of it, don't get me wrong. But then everybody needs work time, or sport time for me, I call it, but then also your life, your personal life, your family and friends. So trying to be able to build, bring both of those together and commit to both sides is probably my biggest challenge. But I'm fortunate I've got really good people around me that make it a lot easier for me.
Do you think during those difficult times, personally and in the cricket world, has there been one or maybe a couple of key things that you've learned about yourself during those difficult times?
Yeah, I think it is the acceptance that as much as it feels like it's everything to you, playing cricket for Australia, it's still just a sport, and you need to look at it that way. You need to enjoy the good times, and you need to accept that through the bad times that there's a lot of people worse off than you, and realise how lucky you are to be doing what you love every day of your life. That's probably the main thing that rings in my ears regularly, and I think also the realisation that you don't live in this world on your own. You have so many people around, you have so much support, even through the tough times, especially for me, my close friends and my family. They've been there with me, I guess, throughout this whole journey, through the ups and the downs, and it makes, I guess, the good times on the field more special knowing that they've been there for you.
We go through a process. We'll roll out a plan or whatever it be, a product, and we'll go through a process after to see what went well, what didn't. Do you go through a similar process after, particularly a test, win, lose, draw?
Yeah, we have a debrief at the end of every game, and I guess firstly we do the team, so we talk about what we've learnt, areas we've performed well, areas we need to improve, but then like we did this morning, we have the coach, the manager and the captain sit in a room together, and I guess we look deeper into where the team's at, where we've improved, areas we need to continually work on. So that generally happens definitely after every game, whether it be a test match or a one-dayer, and then the leadership group, captain, coach and manager, like I say, at the end of every series, we'll sit down and work out, pros and cons and where we think we can get better.
What was the contrast between that process or that piece that you did after the second and third tests? Being that we had them on the ropes in the second, and then not so much over there?
Yeah, I think the first two tests were very positive in regards to the way we played. We thought we could have won the first test in Brisbane, but rain got in the way. Second test, we felt like we should have won the test. We lost the bowler, we lost James Pattinson in the first innings, which really hurt us, and we couldn't get over the line. And then the third test was the realisation that we lost the series. So I think if you look at those tests individually, it's great effort, oh my God, we just lost the series. But I think what we did really well was we assessed the whole series and thought, hang on a second, we just played the #1 test team in the world. It was as hard a fought test series as I've been involved in, and we matched it with them. You know, yes, we didn't win the series, but if you look at the whole, 3 test matches, really we got outplayed in 1 day's cricket, and that cost us the series. So I think you need to be realistic, you need to have respect for your opposition and understand, what they did in Adelaide is something we can learn from, that they managed to hang on and fight and not give the game up. So that's an area when we get into that position, we want to have, that same value. But we should take a lot of positives knowing that we just matched it with the #1 test team in the world.
So there's probably a little bit of diplomacy from your perspective here when I ask this question. But just with the rotation policy, there's been a lot of questions around that third test, particularly in the bowling department. What are your thoughts on that rotation process, or whatever you call it? And also, do you think there was a big impact in that third test? Could it have been different?
Well, it couldn't have been different in regards to Siddle and Hilton House playing because they were both unfit to play. So the rotation policy, so they call it, I think, it's impossible to have the same team for 12 months of the year these days because blokes are going to get injured, blokes are going to need a rest in all 3 forms of the game. So you call it a rotation policy, but at the moment blokes are getting injured or are not fit to take the field, so they're not playing, and we're selecting guys that are 100% fit to take the field, and that's all that happened in Perth. Mitchell Stark, Mitchell Johnson, and John Hastings came into the team because we didn't have Peter Siddle, James Pattinson, Ben Hilfenhaus. All 3 of them weren't fit to play that test match. So that wasn't rotation, that was just the way the game is when blokes aren't 100% fit. So yeah, there's probably 2 sides of it. Like I say, I think the rotation is part of our game now because we're playing 12 months of the year, we're travelling the world, guys are going to get injured or are going to need a rest at certain stages. And if they're 100% fit, there is the opportunity for them to be rotated out of a 1-day game or out of a 2020 game to make sure they're fit for the first test of the summer or the series. And then there's the other side when blokes get injured. As much as the media would love to say Peter Siddle and Ben Hilfenhaus were fit to play in Perth, I guarantee you they weren't, because if they were, they both would have played.
Yeah. So there's a lot of ex-players come out and have their jobs. How does that sit with you? Obviously, you probably have to accept it to a certain extent, but how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think, especially in Australia, we're all entitled to our own opinion. I think that's the freedom in this country that I love. The hardest part as a current player is when past players, are having their opinion and not knowing all of the information. So an example is the Perth Test match. Why are Peter Siddle and Ben Hilfenhaus being rotated? What a load of garbage. Well, they haven't been rotated. They're not fit to play the game. So I think it's people have to sell papers. TV channels are fighting for coverage. Magazines are trying to sell magazines. You've got to sell a story, and unfortunately for the current team, sometimes being positive about the team isn't going to sell that story. So you've got to accept there's going to be some negative press. But I think the most important thing is that the people in the group, in the team, know exactly what's going on. The communication is crucial, that each individual player knows where they stand and the expectation. And then you deal with the other stuff. So, all the players are on the same page. There's been a lot of talk about the rotation, there's no doubt about it. A lot of past players don't like it. There's been a lot of talk about injuries to fast bowlers. But if we look back, when I first started, we had Brett Lee, Jason Gillespie, Glenn McGrath as the 3 major bowlers in the Australian team when I come into the team. And I remember on a number of occasions those guys missing a whole year, due to injury. The great Glenn McGrath that people never thought got injured. He played the same amount of time as Ricky Ponting. He played 105 tests, Ricky's played 168 tests. So he's missed 60 odd test matches through his career due to injury. People don't know that. Yeah, so injuries in bowlers has happened for a long, long time and will continue to. Our support staff, I think, are very good. I think we've got the best physio in the world that I've certainly seen and played with, and his knowledge and the way he studies our bowlers is exceptional. And I think they deserve a lot of credit, more than criticism, for the work they're putting in to try and keep blokes on the park. And these days, when guys are getting injured, they're now out for 4 weeks rather than 4 months, how it used to be. So, you know, the support staff deserve a lot of credit for that.
Now, this is a little bit controversial, this question, and you might need some time to go away and think about this.
You may as well take the mic then.
And answer it. If I can answer this as well, I will. So the question is there any possibility of me being a sub-field at Bellerive? The answer is yes.
You can captain if you like.
I've just said, look, I'll be happy to buy my own gear, but I have to be in any team photos, and if we win, I need to lead the song.
I think we can manage that. You're in.
Is that on?
As long as you get the day off work.
Don't worry about that.
I'd quit.
Back to a little bit more serious. So apparently journalists and people that do these interviews, I'm taking Friday off. Journalists do a lot of research, so I got on Google last night and typed in Michael Clarke, and so much stuff came up. Just couldn't get through any of it. But probably the thing that stuck out at the moment, the question I was going to ask was who in your mind's the world's greatest cricketer? You obviously can't say yourself. So before you answer it, in the last 12 months they're talking about Bradman-esque performances from yourself, which is, can't lie with statistics. And I know you're a humble man.
Statistics don't celebrity.
Yes, they do. Of course they do. Yeah, but who would you put down? Like there's a couple of hundred years of history.
Yeah, it's really hard. I can only go on the players that I played with or against. The greatest player I've ever played against is Brian Lara, and closely followed behind him would be Sachin Tendulkar. They're pretty even. I think the one thing I loved the way Brian played. Brian was always in a much weaker team than Sachin Tendulkar, and he was always leading by example. So that's probably why I rate him as the best player I've ever played against. And the greatest batsman I ever played with, no doubt, was Ricky Ponting. Yeah, the one thing I do respect about statistics is over a long period of time they don't lie, and Ricky's numbers are as good as, well, second to Bradman in our country, in Australia. Brian Lara had amazing statistics as well, so they're probably the best two batters I'll say I've played with and against. The greatest bowler I've ever played with or against, no doubt, would be Shane Warne. I think his knowledge of the game and being able to read a situation with the ball in his hand was unbelievable. It was like he knew what was going to happen before it actually happened, and I've never experienced that before.
And the review system, thoughts on that? Good, bad?
A little bit inconsistent at the moment. I think it is a good system. I think it's good for the game. I think we're getting more decisions right than wrong. It just seems a little inconsistent at the moment. So if they could fix that, I think it'd be fantastic for the game.
I think we agree. I'm just wondering if there's anyone out there that'd like to ask a question. As long as you're up for that.
Yeah, sure.
But not Josh. Anybody else? Just take the mic. Excuse me.
Thanks, Todd. I think you'd agree from when you were a kid, Perth Test is one of the best tests of the summer because you come home from school, you come home from work, and you can watch 2 sessions before the end of the day. Like most of us last week, I probably came home and watched you batting probably day 4, and I went to the fridge to get a beer, and I came back, and next thing I know, your pants were off on the television.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
It wasn't planned.
No, certainly not. It looked pretty painful. But at what point after self-preservation...
Where's this question going?
At what point after self-preservation and making sure you're okay, do you realise you've just dacked yourself in front of 10,000 people and an international television audience of a couple of million?
Until now, I hadn't thought about that. To be honest, the last thing I could care about at that stage was me having my pants around my ankles. I was more concerned that everything was still in place. So, Yeah, I guess sometimes you forget you're on camera, you're on TV. So at that time, I was trying not to dry reach. I didn't realise, and if I've offended you, I did have underpants on and fully covers.
Someone over there, sure.
Sean, are you expecting another green wicket in Hobart, and will it make it an interesting game?
If it's green, it'll make it very interesting. I'm not really sure what to expect. We train this afternoon at 1 o'clock, so I'll know more this afternoon. I'm a little bit nervous about the pitch, only because of what's happened at the start of the first class season. It's been a little bit inconsistent. Sometimes it's been really green. Sometimes it's been a little bit wavy, which means the ball's inconsistent with bounce, which is probably the most dangerous thing in a wicket. I think if it's consistently green, at least it's the same for both teams, so you can deal with that. But when it's wavy, it can be quite dangerous. You could go forward to a ball that you're meant to go back to. So yeah, look, we'll wait and see. Generally around Australia, though, I think the pitches are very good. They have been at Bellary for a long time. The wickets have been great here, so my fingers are crossed. Hopefully, I'll turn up today and it's nice and flat, whether it's green or not. I think we'll still be in for a great test match, no matter what the wicket's like.
Supplementary question. Being a POM, I'm going to ask you the India question. Do you think you're going to have to go out with two spinners based on what England have experienced in the last couple of weeks?
When we go to India?
Yeah.
There's certainly a possibility, no doubt. I think England have played really well over there. I've watched a fair bit of that series. I think their captain, Alistair Cook, deserves a lot of credit the way he's played. He's scored a lot of runs. He's led from the front, I guess, in really tough batting conditions if you're not accustomed to playing spin bowling. And obviously Kevin Peterson being back in their team has had a huge impact as well. So I think we can learn a lot from the way England's gone about that series. But again, we need to make sure we're picking the best 11 players that we have to help us have success. I think a lot of teams get caught up with going to certain conditions and assuming you have to pick 2 spinners or 3 spinners because you're playing in spinning conditions. If they're not 2 or 3 your best bowlers, it doesn't matter how much the wicket spins if you bowl full tosses. So yeah, we've got to make sure we're picking our best 11 players to win in those conditions.
Just one more up the back there, Jane. So it'll have to be the last one, sorry guys. I've got other meetings on. Yeah, it's better if you've got that. It's more efficient.
I just want to know who the most intimidating bowler that you've ever faced against, Australian and international.
Facing Sean Tate in the net was always scary because he had no idea where the ball was going. So I had absolutely no idea as a batter. The best bowler I ever faced, fastest bowler I've ever faced is Shoal Bakhtar, by far. The best bowler I've ever faced is Andrew Flintoff.
Now he's boxing.
And now he can continue to box. I won't have to face him.
So that brings us to the end of this Q&A piece. Thank you very, very much for coming down. Thanks for personally the enjoyment you've given me over the years, and I'm sure everybody here in Australia and actually the world has enjoyed your career. Hopefully it continues for a lot longer. And the other thing I think is just from an integrity perspective, I'm personally very, very proud of the way, not that you care probably, but the way that you captain the side and just go about your everyday life. I think it's fantastic. So
Thank you.
Thanks very much, and thanks for coming down.
I appreciate it.
Guys, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go out into the main lunchroom. So if you have anything that you would like to sign, you can take it out there, and Michael will be out there shortly. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're all right.